Hello and welcome to our Empowering Law Firm Leaders series, where we'll be talking to experts across the legal sector to discover the mindsets, behaviours, skills and digital tools that are needed to run a successful modern law firm. I'm Amy Bruce, host and head of marketing at Osprey Approach. And today I'm joined by the author of Ditch the Billable Hour, Implementing Value-Based Pricing in a Law Firm, former commercial director and CEO of a top 200 law firm, and now owner of Big Yellow Penguin, Shaun Jardine. Welcome, Shaun, and thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, hello, Amy, and thank you very much for the invitation. I'm delighted to be here.
Absolute pleasure. So today we'll be discussing how law firms can successfully implement value-based pricing and help lawyers understand the value that they create. We'll cover how to implement a pricing strategy that reflects the value for lawyers and their clients. We'll also discuss success measures of value-based pricing, best practices for onboarding new clients, and how to successfully implement change across your firm. So I had the pleasure of getting an advanced copy of your book, Shaun, and I have written pages of notes that I have very struggled to condense for this conversation. But I've picked a few key things that I'd love to get into. But just first, just in case nobody has heard of Shaun before, which I'm sure is not true, you're everywhere on LinkedIn and everywhere to do with value-based pricing. But please tell me a little bit about your background and your experience and how that's led you to where you are today.
Okay, I'm a solicitor. I have to say non-practicing solicitor now, otherwise the SRA can kidnap children or something like that. Something drastic happens. But I'm a solicitor. I was an equity partner in a law firm. I was elected CEO for a 3-year term, which lasted 4 years, 9 months, 11 days, not that I was counting. And when I turned 60, I decided I'd had enough of private practice and set up the Big Yellow Penguin. And really the value-based pricing element came about because in 2017, I went to Dallas to a conference organized by a pricing guru called Ron Baker. And there were 100 people at this conference, and I was the only Brit. And I met loads of lawyers, loads of professional services people who were implementing value-based pricing. And I thought, wow, this is a much better way of doing professional services than charging by 6-minute units. And so when I came back, I was in the fortunate position to be able to implement that at my firm. And once that took off, that was great. And then I was able to actually look at what I did, the processes that I implemented, because there wasn't a book telling you how to do it, to say, well, okay, how can we do this in legal? And now that's what I'm doing. I'm helping law firms get away from the billable hour and hopefully have more profitable businesses and happier staff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they're the two prime things that everybody wants at the moment. So we'll be spending some time talking about value-based pricing and the successes of it. So people should definitely stick around for the entire conversation. But if they've only got 5 minutes, what are your top 3 key takeaways, in hindsight, your lessons for running a successful modern law firm?
Wow, big question. Okay. Surround yourself with good people, I think is something. Be prepared to delegate. You know, lawyers are terrible about wanting to take things on and do themselves, and life becomes a lot easier when you've got qualified marketing people, qualified HR people, qualified operations people. So delegate to and play to your strengths, but that is kind of linked with surround yourself with good people. And also just never ask anybody to do anything you wouldn't be prepared to do yourself. And I'm a great believer in that. In my youth, in my university holidays, I used to be a road sweeper and a dustman. I used to always look after the road sweeper at our offices, and I'd give them bottles of wine at Christmas and look after them because these people doing a job that I did. And do you know what? They always made sure that our pavements were clean, and they always looked after. There was never any litter outside our offices and that kind of stuff. And so I'm a great believer in just looking after your people. That's an important thing.
Yeah, 100%. And we'll touch actually on why value-based pricing and running a successful modern law firm depends on teamwork and depends on all the departments. We'll touch on that a little later on. But yeah, as I said, your book titled Ditch the Billable Hour, it introduces the 8P point plan, which I'm sure we'll talk again more later on. And that's the sort of implementation process that you've come up for implementing value-based pricing. So it's unsurprising we're going to go through a few best practices, the benefits of value-based pricing. But I just wanted to start with a section of the book that kind of made me laugh, perhaps not in a good way, but it refers to Matt Holman's 10 rules for the billable hour, which you'd also added a few of your own. I've noted a few that have stuck out to me, so I'm just going to read them to you. Rule number 6 was businesses succeed when people work better, law firms succeed when people work longer. Your clients understand this and resent you for it. Rule 8 was the hardest thing to measure is talent, the easiest thing to measure is time. And your first added rule, number 11, Shaun, was we make pricing mistakes all the time. They're called whip write-offs. So I guess these rules sort of highlight the reasons why you believe firms should ditch the billable hour. So I just wanted to ask, what are your 3 top reasons for that? And I guess they're sort of the reasons why you wrote the book in the first place.
I think the reasons, the drivers for doing this are clients don't like the billable hour, and if you give your clients fixed prices and a choice of fixed prices, they're going to love you for it. So it's client led, first of all. Lawyers do not like living their lives in 6-minute units, and time recording. There are loads of mistakes with time recording with the billable hour. Matt's list was absolutely brilliant, and I was delighted that he gave me permission to completely put the whole of the list in the book, and that was very kind of him. But the list is great of all the things that are wrong with the billable hour. Lawyers are terrible at time recording anyway. As a general rule, they discount, they double discount, they triple discount sometimes their work, where they think, oh, shouldn't I put this down? So that it impacts, the profitability of the business that way. And actually, as a firm, you can make more money, because if you actually find out you're giving your clients gold, silver, bronze options, and a gold is more expensive than a bronze, and your clients are choosing gold and paying a gold price, you can make more money. And also your clients are happier and your lawyers are happier. And so you kind of get this 3-way triangle of happiness, really. And I think that's really, really important when we know there's battles for talent. We know that the billable hour is under threat, and it certainly is. And lawyers have got to come up with a new business model. And this is something that I think, I genuinely believe can help.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you mentioned about your options, your gold, silver, bronze there. We're not going to dive into this in this conversation, but you have joined me on our Build Better Habits series. So I'd recommend everybody go check that out, because you dive into sort of the fundamentals a little bit more in that episode. But yeah, like you said, it's a 3-way thing: profits, employees, clients. What more could you what more could you want on that? A key message throughout your book is to focus on outcomes. That was a big message that I certainly got. Why is that important for law firms?
Because lawyers naturally don't focus on outcomes when a client comes through the front door. And when you think about, let's take conveyancing, for example, a client coming to a lawyer for conveyancing isn't really interested in the contract. They're not really interested in the transfer document. They're not interested in the preliminary inquiries, all the paperwork, all the process that the lawyer's going to do. Clients don't care about. What they care about is, can you make sure that we're in the property by the 14th of March, because the new term starts after then and the kids have got to start their new school. That's what their outcome that they want is. A matrimonial client isn't interested in the paperwork. Their outcome is, I'm in an unhappy relationship and I want to be happy again. A corporate client is, I want this commercial property deal to be finished soon because I've got machinery being delivered for Germany and I want to make sure that the production can be maintained. And quite often lawyers don't talk about outcomes. What is it we're trying to achieve? What is it we're trying to succeed? And focusing on those outcomes. And once you start having those questions to say, what do you want from me? What does success look like? What do you want to achieve? Sometimes what a lawyer thinks a client wants to achieve, they don't. But until you have that conversation, you don't know. And that's the important thing about outcomes. Why do people make a will? And the answer is because they want to sleep better at night and know that the kids are provided for and the inheritance tax is minimized. They never buy a will because it is such a brilliant legal document they're going to get it out and read it again. They're never going to take that will down the pub to say, Steve, have a read of my will. It is brilliant. It is just peace of mind. That's why we do it. So it's thinking about outcomes and what people buy. Because when I train with lawyers, I will ask them, I said, what is it your clients buy for you? And lawyers will often say, oh, it's our expertise. It's our knowledge. And it's not. They're buying the outcome. So let's just think about it a little bit laterally, think about it a bit differently, and then we start making sure that we deliver and focus on what clients want.
Yeah, I mean, taking a tech angle on this as well, being having my Osprey hat on, is that those outcomes allow you to utilize that tech. I mean, AI is everywhere at the moment. Everyone's talking about it. I don't want to talk about it right now, but it's important. And that focus on outcomes allow you to take advantage of that.
Absolutely. And, you know, you can use the tech in the way that you deliver and create your options for your clients as well. So that's one of the great variables as well, to use and enable service delivery in the way that you utilize your tech.
Yeah, absolutely. To give you that competitive advantage, to allow you to deliver that quick next day service or that, you know, modern client touch point, whatever it may be.
Absolutely. And just think about, I know you don't, I know options are not the big focus of this, but if you think about gold, silver, bronze options, if my bronze option for dealing with a conveyancing transaction is you client will only be communicated via our portal, I'll use my tech to communicate it. It'll all be in the portal. But if you want the gold service where you want to ring me up every 5 minutes and have my mobile phone number, that's at the other end of the spectrum and you will pay a different price. But the tech will enable me to create those options to deliver the services to the clients.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that enabler, isn't it? You just touched on about the client outcomes and aligning the lawyer's perceptions of what the client actually wants. And you referenced that in the book. You mentioned the Lexis Bellwether report that showed lawyers' perceptions of what their clients thought they wanted didn't align with the client priorities. The last time we spoke, as I mentioned in our Build Better Habits series, you shared a story where you'd won a client offering a higher price than your competitors, but simply because he felt like you'd understood his needs, and you did that by putting your value proposition, as it were, in a proposal, something that your competitors hadn't thought to do. So how important is it, and this may be a silly question, but how important is it to know your clients to be successful at value-based pricing? Or perhaps how important is it just to run a successful modern law firm?
I think there's a number of questions in there. The first one about the proposal document. The proposal looked completely different. It had pictures of the lawyers on it. It had, this is what you've asked us to do. It said, this is what you've asked us to do. This is how we're going to do it. This is what we're not going to do. This is the team that's going to help you deliver it. These are our timescales, etc., etc. And it was a nice looking template with pictures of nice looking people on it, branded, looked different. The other firm, equally good firm, had just sent a letter with a price on it. Our price for doing this bit of work is X. And it's because ours looked different and the client thought, Shaun, you've really thought about this. You've sought to understand what we want to achieve. And actually all I'd really done was reframe and replay back to them in the document confirmation that I understood what they wanted to do. I think the other firm would have equally been able to do that, but they didn't present it in such a way. So you can present your documents, your proposals differently, and that will then set you apart from your competition. Then when you get down into knowing your client, well, you're only ever going to know your client if you have a conversation with them, which is why I'm so anti-website calculators, especially that get used on conveyancing on websites, because you know, law firms talk about, we'll put the client at the center of everything we do, but we're not going to talk to you. Well, that's not putting the client at the center of everything you do. So I'm anti-website calculators. But if you have that conversation, what is the client seeking to achieve? Why are they wanting to do it? Why are they doing this particular action at this time now? You can then help them create a strategy, create the options that they want. They are happy because you've asked lots of questions about their matter. They want to know that you understand their matter. That was number one in the LexisNexis survey. Clients want to know that the lawyers understand what they want to achieve. That's absolutely fundamental. You can then take it a further stage, and I know one firm who do this, where they almost try and apply psychometric testing options to their client base. Now, anyone who's been psychometrically tested will know there's various different character traits in individuals. I was psychometrically tested using something called a Luminar profile, which is a color profiling system. And it is red is very direct, yellow is creative, green is all about the people, and blue is all about the detail. And you have one predominant color, and then you have little bits of others. You, or Amy, you may be surprised to know that I am predominantly red. I'm quite direct with people. I'm quite happy conversations, etc., etc. I'm got yellow, and then I've got yellow in there for the creativity element. I am not at all blue. I'm not interested in detail and Excel spreadsheets. I would much rather the person who understands the Excel spreadsheets comes to me and tells me, here's the executive summary, and that's the number you need to think about. Great. Okay, that's fine. That's all I want. I'm not going to wade through everything else. Apply that to legal services and pitches and proposals. If you think we're doing a tender document and we know this is going to go to the FD, first of all, we better put some blue in there. We better lead with the detail and make sure there's lots of detail at the beginning, because that's what he's going to be interested in and want to know it's there. If you're pitching to the CEO that is very red, give him or her an executive summary. They only want the headlines, and then the detail can be back as an appendices and things like that. Now that's, I think, really interesting when you get to take that another stage further about knowing your client. But you know, I know, as I say, there's one firm that are doing some work in that area, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah, that's sort of exciting, isn't it? That there's opportunities out there to take a hold of. And I think it goes back to what you said earlier about delegating and using the talents of other people. If you've got a marketing team, they're normally the people that are involved in that and have a background in that. Use them to put the proposal together and communicate it in the best way.
Yeah, absolutely. And delegation, even delegation of work to colleagues, lawyers tend to do quite badly. And why do we do that badly? Usually because we're not trained in how to delegate properly. And actually what we might say, oh, here's a file. Would you mind doing the witness statement for something or something? You know, just get rid of the file that way. Where actually, if you're going to delegate something, you might want to say, look, here is a file. This is what it's about. We've got 8 witnesses here. The witness I want you to do is Amy, and Amy Dalla. Amy happens to live abroad or whatever. There might be different time zones. And by the way, we need this back by such and such a time. So have you got capacity now to do it? Can you meet this time limit, etc., etc., etc.? And if you've got any questions, you know, have a little read of the file, then come back, ask me if you've got any questions, and then we can crack on and do it. That's a better way of delegating than saying, here's a memo, here's a file, can you do a witness statement? And it's that kind of thing where taking time to delegate properly is so important. But lots of lawyers get so wound up with, you know, chargeable and non-chargeable time that they think, oh, I haven't got time to do this. I haven't got time to spend on it. And you might recall there's a cartoon in the book about mentoring, about, you know, how mentoring is done in a law firm. And I won't spoil the cartoon, but it's not terribly funny the way that lawyers sometimes deal with their colleagues in that regard.
Yeah, I think that reminded me of the conversation we had about scope creep and scoping, and it's about putting that time in up front, and that'll save you endless time later on.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So within the first P of your 8-point plan, you outline some home truths and some critical success factors. Again, I've listed a few of my favorites. I'm going to pick a few. Your pioneer pilot team will make mistakes. You will need to call out bad habits. you will create and amend templates many times, and you will need to trial and test assumptions. I wanted to ask you, what are your home truths and success factors that you believe are most important?
Okay, and really it's the pioneering team, where those people who are going to embark on the project in the firm, we've got to create a psychologically safe space for them to be prepared to take this on and make mistakes, because in any firm, when you start doing this as a process, you're not going to get it right from the get-go. And it is important that we say to people, if you become part of this pioneer group, you will make mistakes. It's absolutely okay to do that. All we've got to do is always make sure we learn from them. And when I work with law firms, I will always make sure that the CFO or the CEO will explain to the pioneer group how much WIP was written off in the previous year. So how much work was done the previous year that we didn't bill from. And as a usual rule, it's between 10 and 20% of turnover. And in a firm, so we're into hundreds of thousands or millions of pounds of WIP that was a mistake last year that we didn't bill. And so the Pioneer Penguin Group, those that are going to do this, they're not going to make mistakes of that magnitude. So they've got to be told, it is okay, let's try this. Because if we're going to create options for clients, and a client might turn around and say, no, that's too much for me, I'm going to go. They might be the wrong kind of client anyway, because I'm a great fan that we price clients separately. We price matters separately. And if clients are difficult and awful to deal with, we make sure that we either don't take the instructions in the first place, or we price it in such a way that it makes it profitable to do it if they are difficult people to deal with. So we put our prices up. So yeah, I would think that the mistakes is important. Also, the leadership is really important, that the leaders have got to lead. And if there are bad habits, and if there are people looking to undermine the process, that those people get called out regardless of their seniority in the business. And that's important, because if the leadership let complacency set in, this is a change management project won't happen. And to embrace value-based pricing you've got to go on a change management journey. That's why we've got the 8 steps in the plan, which copy John Cotter's 8 steps to change management. Is based on his methodology. So it's a methodology that we know works, but we've just got to make sure that the leaders lead, because that is so fundamentally important.
Yeah, I mean, change management is huge, and we will come on to that. But again, that leadership is a core part of that. They need to be the role models, the mentors to lead this forward. There needs to be buy-in. And in fact, I spoke to Simon McCrum in a previous interview, and he said it's not enough to have good people around you. You have to not have bad people around you, because that has such an impact on what's going on. The bad people actually have a much more negative impact.
Absolutely. And that can spread across the whole environment, where you might think, if you're doing a presentation to a group of people, and then say another partner walks out, as everybody walks out and go, well, I'm not doing that then. I'm not doing that. They'll hear that throwaway line from someone. Everyone has said, well, they're not doing it, I haven't got to do it then. You know, and that's why everybody's got to be on the same page. This is the goal. This is where we're going to. And if somebody's going to say, look, hang on, I'm not doing this because, well, we need to have private conversations and find out why they're not doing it. They might have a very good legitimate reason, which is worth exploring that. But if they're just saying, no, I'm special, it doesn't apply to me, when actually it's part of the strategic objective to make sure that we do this, then, as I've indicated in the book, leaders might have to let people go, and they might have to find a new home somewhere else, because it is important you keep to the strategy.
Yeah, if you've set yourself that goal, you need to make sure that there's nothing in your way that's going to stop you, and sometimes perhaps that is your team and your employees. We touched on there the pioneer group. That was one of my favorite parts of the book, because I'd never thought about it like that, and I actually thought it was super interesting to have this group and give them, you sort of outlined rules and characteristics, which I thought were great. Can you just explain the role a little deeper and what the characteristics might be for a good pioneer?
Well, a good pioneer, they've got to be enthusiastic. They've got to be wanting to explore this particular journey. So if you're saying, look, we're going to do a new way of pricing within our firm, who wants to be a part of this group? Now, it doesn't have to be all partner led. If in fact, actually, it's preferably that it is not all partner led. So these people could come from anywhere in the group, but they've got to have enthusiasm. They've got to have a thirst for knowledge. They've got to be prepared to say, do you know what, I'm going to give this a go. And leaders can come from anywhere in an organization. A leader could be a paralegal in a team that does really good work and knows some of the other paralegals, and they're saying, I want to all be like Amy in that team over there. And if that person gets engaged with the product, and they're saying, well, I rate that person, they seem to know what they're on, they've got a good head on their shoulders. That's elements of leadership. So we've got to get enthusiastic people into this group. As I say, there is a place for naysayer, no penguins, but not in the group. We will involve them. We will take on board, their views during the process. But on the group, on day one, we want to have people who are going to say, yeah, I'm going to do this. And we've got to make sure that they're if they're associates in the firm or newly qualified, could be trainee solicitors, that their time is freed up to be part of the group. You can't say, look, you're going to be part of this group, and by the way, we still expect you to do your full quota of hours, etc., etc., etc. It has got to be, you make freedom for these people to get involved. And I spoke at a conference last year, and at the end of it, a young trainee solicitor came up to me and said, Shaun, I really enjoyed hearing about pricing. I think we price too low at my firm, but my boss won't let me put my prices up. That trainee solicitor was a leader. He was thinking about what was going on and what could he do. And he was saying to me, how can I encourage my boss to help me and allow me to put my prices up? And you think, wow, that is the kind of person that I'd, be falling over myself to get into my business if I was still in private practice. But so leaders can come from everywhere. They're not necessarily all wearing a P for partner badge.
Yeah, and I think to have those different perspectives, especially from a client point of view, those people who are on the front line, they're on the support, they're dealing with that client challenges or the reviews every day. It's those people that actually are going to have a different view, a different perspective. And like you said, you need people that are flying the flag. You don't want anyone that's a bit skeptical, that's a bit on the fence. You need people who are, regardless of any failures that might come across or regardless of any naysayers, you need people who are to the core, ready to to put this into play.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, the group will get things wrong, and that's absolutely fine, as long as we can share our learnings and then think, right, what are we going to do different next time round?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about learning from it. And we're actually going to touch on failure in just a second. But first, as part of your value-based pricing implementation, you say that you're a big fan of onboarding scripts. And we sort of touched on this earlier. They give a bit of a structure to the discovery conversation, because you've sort of mentioned most lawyers miss that opportunity to actually find out about the person in front of them. So why do you think that onboarding scripts are so important? Because I know there are, a few people who sit on the fence with that. And also, what are a few elements that people should be considering as part of that process?
Okay, I think it's important to have a process. People will immediately balk at the thing. Script, you're going to do a script. I'm going to end up with 40 questions. I'm going to start at question 1. No, you haven't. But if you understand there's going to be a structure to this conversation, where during the conversation, I'm going to ask questions, I'm going to take notes. I'm going to ask you, first of all, is it okay if I take notes? And of course, the client is going to say yes. But I will say, do you mind if I call you Amy? No, of course I don't mind. But I'm engaging with clients at the outset to say, well, there's some information that I need from you about this matter. And I will ask you other questions as well. And the important thing to recognize is when that client is in front of us for the very first time, we can ask them pretty much anything we want about their business, about their lives, about their families set up, about have they got kids, about this, about you know, are you a carer for your mum and dad, or whatever, that kind of stuff. And if they say, yeah, I am, they say, well, has your mum and dad made a will, and have they done lots of public? No, they haven't yet. Okay, well, I'll make a note of that, because what I want to do is find out everything about you that I can. Of course, I'm going to deal with the conveyancing transaction that you happen to be talking to me about, or whatever it is. But then I'm going to make sure that I can look at what else you will need in your life. And we talk about wanting to have clients for a lifetime. What else is it that I can ultimately seek to, and I'll use the S word now, what else could I sell you at some time in the future? Not necessarily today, but what do you need? And if you think for conveyancing onboarding, most times a conveyancing quote is someone a ring and they say, yeah, hello, all right, hello, Amy. Yeah, you're buying. Can you tell me how much you're buying for? Is it freehold? Is it leasehold? All right, can you tell me how much you're selling for? Is it freehold? Is it leasehold? How many people are there? And is there a mortgage? And they say, okay, my price is, and I'll give you a price. That's how quite a lot of conveyancing quotation goes on. If you speak to someone, even you don't even get that if you're using a website calculator, you're just putting that in yourself. But if you were to ring me up and say, hello, Shaun, you've been recommended to me as a conveyancing lawyer for the North Oxfordshire area. And I say to you, oh, well, great to hear from you, Amy. Can I ask who recommended me? And you'll say, yeah, it was Fred Bloggs down the road. I thought, oh, that's lovely. I must buy Fred a pint then when I next see him, to thank you for the instructions. Anyway, Amy, what's bringing you to North Oxfordshire? Oh, well, I'm being relocated as part of my company move. Oh, right. Oh, how do you feel about that then? Oh, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's quite exciting. Which company are you working for? Well, I'm working for Karcher, the big power washer people who've got a big head office in Banbury. Oh, lovely. That's a nice place. Anyway, Amy, where are you buying? Well, we're buying in Bloxham. Oh, that's a lovely village, Amy. I don't live too far from there. And did you know that the Joiners Arms, the pub there, has just got planning permission? They're going to spend £1 million doing up the pub. It's going to be brilliant. And the primary school, they're just going to do a new hall for the primary school, because the village is growing, because it's so popular. Oh, you're going to love Bloxham, Amy. And then you can say, and are we under any timelines? Yeah, well, actually, because it's a corporate move, and I've got some children, I've got to make sure the children get into school for the new start of term. Okay, so when is term day? Well, actually, we're hoping to get them in for the 15th of May. Brilliant. Let me make a note of that, Amy. Now, I carry on like that in a structure. I'm getting the instructions. I'm then going to get onto the who are the people. I'm then going to get onto the dress. I'm then going to get onto what you're selling. But at the end of it, if I then give you a price and I'm £500 or £600 more expensive than someone else, the chances are you don't care, because you've engaged with me on a level and I've understood your situation. I know it's important for you to get in on that day. I've told you about the Joiners Arms and you weren't aware of the primary school, new school hall. And you're thinking, these people really know this stuff. And even if it's an area that I don't know, I could say, well, I'll tell you what, Amy, you're buying in a little village on the outskirts of Grimsby. I don't know where that is, but I'm going to do that. Amy, what's the address of the property? Because what I'd like to do before I give you a quote, I just want to go on Google Earth, have a little look around about what's going on in the property in that area, just because it's not an area I'm familiar with, but I want to do that for you before I come back. Is that okay? And of course, you're going to say, yes, that is okay. Has anybody else suggested that they Google Earth a property while you get the quote? No, they don't. And then I'm going to give you some price options. I'm going to give you a gold, silver, bronze price option. Because if you're thinking, actually, I work for a bank in the city, and I'm saying, would you mind coming out to North Oxfordshire to sign your mortgage deed and contract? You're thinking, no, I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that. But I might do a price option that says, Amy, would you like me to jump on a train and bring this down to your office and we'll sign all the stuff at your office? Oh, Shaun, that'd be great if you could do that. Not a problem, mate. I can do that for you. It's going to be reflected in the price, but you're going to choose that option. And really, that's where it comes into, when you role play these kind of things, as getting back to your question about scripts, which seems so long ago, but when you do this, people really, really engage with the process. And I remember the first time I did this with one of our conveyancers, he came to me afterwards and said, Shaun, the client loved it. He loved it. He instructed me. I said, brilliant. He said, no, Shaun, no, the client instructed me. I said, no, that's the object of the exercise, Joe. That's really important. He said, no, the client said he wanted to go ahead and I hadn't even given him the price. He said, because he said, no, I really want you to act for me. And he was working through his structure, hadn't got to the price. And if the client, let's say you say it's a corporate move, and actually your employer are paying the relocation charges, you don't care about the price. You're not paying. So I can increase it. And if you're thinking, well, that Shaun is lovely, he's going on about the pub, the thing, and actually I'm not paying. And if I then charge you maybe £1,000 more or £2,000 more, you'll go back to your HR and say, that's my lawyer, that's who I want to use. Can put it through, please. So that's why I think scripts are important. It gives our staff a framework, and once they start getting into that engagement, whatever it is, then we're connecting with the client, and we know that clients want to be understood, and that's why we do it. I once heard one person say, and I think I mentioned this in the book, where someone taking instructions on a probate never said, I'm sorry to hear that your mum died. And I said to this lawyer, I said, why didn't you ever just say, sorry to hear about the loss? And the response I got was, they know their mum is dead. That's why they're calling. Nothing wrong with it factually, yes, because no point doing a probate for someone who's alive. I get that. But on a human level, that's appalling. And so I want people, then I wanted people to say, I'm really sorry about your loss, because that's just being nice.
Yeah, it shows that you care. I think that whole example with the conveyancing, again, just shows that you're willing to take out that time, you're willing to find out who I am, and that you care.
And the outcome that you want is, I want that dream property in North Oxfordshire that I've been looking for ages, and I want to be in on that date because the kids start school. I understand your pains and your options, Amy. That's what I'm going to do for you. I could say to you, I understand the transaction. Shall we open a file and go ahead then? And you're going to say yes.
100%. And that works in a conversational way, but also as part of the proposal. You can use bits of that information that you found out as part of the proposal to show the value of why this is the cost.
And to show that you understand exactly what they're wanting to achieve, and therefore you understood why they're coming to a lawyer for. And it's worth spending that time doing that, because your strike rate is better. And if your strike rate is better, you will make more money. And if your strike rate is better and you're charging more, you can do more. You can do that work for a higher value, and then do less work. So you get a better work-life balance.
Yeah, and you mentioned in the book, speed is bad. And yeah. I think the conversation there just highlighted exactly why, because if you put the time in up front, and also it sort of plays to the fact that as a consumer, perhaps I'm already thinking the lawyer's going to try and rush me. They're basing it on time. I don't have much time to chat to them. And you've immediately showed me the opposite of that, even in just the inquiry call, because you've made me feel relaxed, at ease, and that you're willing to spend the time.
Yeah, and the thing is, with the speed of pricing, people think, I've got to give you a price straight away. Well, if I was a builder and I came around your house, you're having a 2 up, 2 down extension, you say, Shaun, can you turn up at 4 o'clock? I turn up at 4 o'clock. I have a look around out the back. I get out a tape measure. And then at 4:15, after being there for 15 minutes, if I say, yeah, I can do this extension for you, it's 184,000 quid. You're not going to be impressed, because you're going to be thinking, well, hang on, we didn't talk about tiles. We didn't talk about the bathroom fittings. I've got a mind of a kitchen of what I want. I might be 100% right, because I know what I'm a good builder. I'm going to do a quality, but it doesn't impress you. You want me to go away, think about it, come back, talk you through a proposal. And lawyers don't do that. And we should, because the clients want to know that we are thinking about their matter. And if, let's say it's a company commercial deal, and you're selling your business, and you come on a Zoom call, and I'm saying, yeah, hello, well, great to meet you, Amy. I've got my friend Fred here from the employment team. I've got Sally here from commercial property. can we have a chat about what you're doing then? And you'll think, wow, there's 3 of them there just taking instructions, or just to, hear about what I'm doing. And that's at my cost, because I want to make sure we get this for you, get it right. And you're going to think, well, they're investing in the project, even though they haven't been awarded the contract yet. And then once I give you a price and say all of this is covered, if future meetings, all 3 of us are there again, you're going to be thinking, well, that's great, I don't care, I've got a fixed price. Whereas if you're paying by the hourly rate and you come on a Zoom call with 20 lawyers sitting there, you're going to be thinking, hello, how much is this costing me then? And that's why it's so important.
Yeah, it's very true. It's that peace of mind, isn't it? And it's that first impression. We all know first impressions count, and that's exactly what we're doing here. And then they become brand ambassadors for you moving forward, and all that good stuff. After speaking to a lot of law firm leaders in the series, there's a key theme that any type of change, whether that be a new process, a new office, a new tech tool, it requires a cultural and mindset shift. And that's no different from value-based pricing. And you discuss in the book that it affects every person and every department. And the HR department might be the last place you think that value-based pricing would affect, but actually it does. And in the book, I thought that was quite interesting. So I just wanted to ask you, why is it important to get everybody involved, and how does it affect HR and those teams that you wouldn't expect?
Look, law is it's a people business. Okay, well, we employ a lot of human capital in this business, and nobody likes change. Nobody likes change. The change management curve is the same as the bereavement curve. Anybody's studied that? There's an example of it in the book. But so we've got this change that people don't like, and people will want to have conversations about the change, and they will have thoughts and fears, and they might not want to go to their line manager directly about this. They might say, I'd like to speak to HR about this. And I think it's always important that HR are briefed and know what is going on, because they are going to have people knocking on their door saying, I'm not sure about this. Now, it might be that HR have got to put a little arm around their shoulder and say, look, this is absolutely fine. We are briefed. We do not know what's going on. It's been thought out. We're involved in the training. You're going to get taught a new way of doing things. So, well, HR have been briefed. We know we've got a training schedule set up. We've got trainers provided. Don't worry about that, etc., etc. It might be that people are saying, well, look, how am I going to hit my bonus? It might affect me financially. Don't worry. We've thought about what the remuneration package is going to be about this, etc., etc. And usually people are worried about the training aspects of learning something new, making time to learn something new as well. And that's why the HR people are so important. And, and I think it is fascinating that HR as a general rule, and lawyers as a general rule, will never ask a question of an interview when someone come in there saying, tell me about the pricing strategy at your current firm. And if all of a sudden somebody says, well, actually, yeah, we do value-based pricing and we're doing this, that, and the other, then you're thinking, well, this is great, because you can be an ambassador for this particular product. You've been, or this team, you are skilled already. And actually, it's always a good question to ask. Tell me about the pricing structure at your current firm, because you want to know what your competition are doing anyway. I met someone the other day who in a law firm, I was speaking to the management team. They had promoted somebody to be the head of a conveyancing team whose philosophy was, we undercut everybody. And I said, that's a very bad philosophy. And they say, well, you think we've promoted the wrong person? I said, I know you've promoted the wrong person. I said, all that's going to happen is, I said, you're going to then end up with a churn of staff, because if you keep undercutting your competition to get the work, you're going to get lots of work, but you're going to need more people. You're going to have your staff being burnt out. They won't want to work for you. They're going to go somewhere else with lower caseloads. I'm afraid it's just a bad decision. You as the management team need to think about that. And actually they haven't. Now, whether or not they've done anything about it as we record this, I don't know. But I sincerely hope they have. But yeah,
Yeah, and
HR really important.
yeah, it's all those people things, isn't it? Whether it be from a good or a bad perspective, whether it's those people who, you know, are the naysayers and aren't interested, or whether it's those people who are really keen but a bit scared of the change. It's that impact that everyone can have on one another to make sure the team are working and driving in the same direction. I love that idea. The last topic I want to explore in the book was failure. Now, we've mentioned that a few times already. I wrote an article at the start of last year that said why law firms need to fail more to succeed. And it was inspired by the book Black Box Thinking by Matthew Syed. I think it's a brilliant book. And you mention it throughout Ditch the Billable Hour too. So we spoke about scope creep previously, so I'm not going to mention that now, but you say crucially in the book that it's important to discuss when scope creep happens within team meetings so you can share, and knowledge is power, so that if it were to happen again, you've got that hindsight and you've got that information. So I wanted to ask you, what's your advice on how to prepare to fail? And also, what do law firms need to think about when there's individuals or there's teams or the business as a whole experiences failure? And I'm going to say that in sort of quotes. You know, it's not always a bad thing, failure. Yeah, but how can people prepare for that?
I think it comes back to the safe environment where someone can say, look, this has gone off kilter. You know, we need to try and put this right. And it might take more time than we thought and we budgeted for when we did it. And so where we thought we were going to make a profit, perhaps we're not going to make a profit. Because one of the questions I will always get when I'm talking about value-based pricing is someone will raise their hand and say, what are you going to do when you've quoted £10,000 and then by the time that we've finished the project, it is £13,000 worth of WIP? What are we going to do? And the answer is you're going to suck it up and you're going to learn from it. And then we're going to go back and think, why did we quote 10? What did we think was going to happen? What actually happened? And now what would we do differently? And I talk about after action reviews in the book quite a lot, where we look at what we did and what happened and what should have happened. And then when the next similar deal comes in, we think, well, actually, we need to think about that on the scoping there, because where we thought we could do something for this amount of time, we discovered it was a lot more complicated than we thought. So we're going to build in some more wiggle room. And then we document that so that next time when somebody comes in, we can bring out the old proposals, have a look at those, and then start tweaking them. And I had a system at my old firm where I could tell you what the prices were for every take shareholders agreements. I could pull up the data, what the last 20 shareholders agreements that we've done, what was the price of them, and what was the average write-off. And if the average price of them, the bill that we rendered was £2,500, and the average write-off was £1,500, I could say to the commercial lawyer, look, we tend to charge £2,500, but we tend to write off £1,500. So therefore, our starting point ought to really be £4,000. That's our base cost. We are not going to below that. Now, if the client is then saying, I want this tomorrow, it's going to be more than £4,000. Oh, are you really busy? Well, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So we work out what our base costs are. We work out what our product lines are, and then we make sure we stick to them and we document them. And that's the important thing, because I can't remember if I've ever asked you this question. It might be a bit unfair to ask you now, but if you think of every law firm as having products like on shelves and in a supermarket, and a will is one product, an LPA is another product, a probate is a third product, conveyancing sale for a purchaser, conveyancing sale for a vendor, leasehold, these are all products. When I did a piece of work with Oxford Brookes University, how many products have we got in our law firm? How many do you think we had? Now, we were a kind of large regional firm doing pretty much lots of private client and commercial work. I can put you out your misery, Avi. It was 330 products we identified.
That's not what I was going to go for. So
most people say 20 or something like that. And we came up with 330, and I don't think at the end of it, we'd still identified them all. Then once you know what you're selling, you can start putting source codes, your matter codes, so that you think, what are the actual products that we make money on, and which are the ones that we're really rubbish at? And then once you know that, you can say, well, let's do more of the ones we make money on, and let's not actually take any instructions on the ones we're not very good at. And it's that kind of stuff. And you mentioned it on the intro to this particular question, that knowledge is power. We have all this knowledge in our businesses. We just don't write it down and collate it and keep it somewhere where we keep reinventing the wheels all the time. And when I work with law firms, I do lots of survey questions. And one survey question that I will ask them, every firm, is, when a new starter joins your team, how is the pricing induction carried out? Most popular answer, it isn't. Hello, this is our money, and it's that kind of thing where there are a lot of quick wins that you can do on value-based pricing. And some of it is pretty basic. If you and I went shopping in Tesco's and we had the same shopping list and we get to the checkout, our prices should be the same. I did a piece of work with a residential conveyancing firm not so long ago, had 15 people in the team. I gave them a scenario. How much would you quote for this particular transaction? I got 15 prices. And the prices range from 1,650 to 5.5 grand. Hello, right, let's talk about pricing in your team. Why do we do that? And these are where, once we start these conversations, once we start empowering people to contribute to these conversations, and once we start documenting what it is we do, we find that we get rid of osmosis, we get rid of bad habits, because we're saying, no, we're not going to do work at 1,650 actually. We're going to do it here. Our minimum base price is going to be 3 grand. Hello, that lawyer's just doubled their fee income, because they're still landing clients, but they're not doing it at a cheap rate, and they're empowered not to do it at a cheap rate because someone's looked at it.
I think it's that sharing that's key, isn't it? Just because someone's done one thing and someone's done another, no one's ever going to know if no one's communicating that or sharing. Like you said, knowledge is power. Yeah. And that then empowers the team to feel like they can get the value. I mean, the key aim with your book, I think you wrote it in the first couple of paragraphs, was your aim for this was allow lawyers to charge the right price for their value. And that's key, isn't it? Finding what their value is within the firm. And
it's lawyers as well thinking, yeah, I am worth this, and believing we are worth it, because we are. We do great jobs, that people do brilliant work out there. But we've just got to make sure that we start capturing some of the value for what we do. And you will never get a pump fist price. You'll never get that price makes you go, yeah. You will never get that unless you ask for it. And when you ask for it and they say, client says, yeah, fine, you're thinking, oh, okay. Next time I'll ask for a bit higher than the pump fist price on the next opportunity, see what happens. And if you're in an environment where you are empowered to do that, you will find that your self-esteem, your pricing confidence increases, you'll have happier workmates, the pressure goes off in terms of billing targets and all of this kind of stuff, where you're thinking, well, I know I can achieve this because I am empowered to charge the true worth that I bring to a particular matter. And if I'm not required to do conveyancing, someone says, oh, do this conveyancing transaction for £800. You think, no, I'm not going to do it. And we have a framework within the organization. We do not have to do work that is unprofitable and cross-departmental. And, sometimes lawyers will say, oh, well, I don't know why conveyancing can't do that for 800 quid. It's only a bit of form filling, isn't it? So says a litigation lawyer or private client lawyer. No, actually, it's a lot more complicated than that. And our rate is £2,500. That's what we're going to charge. Okay, then. And let's start, backing each other up as well within the same law firm. Yeah, and I think that rubs off on the service as well, because it's the whole point of this is to provide clients with the value. And the reason why we might charge a little more is because we're going to give them the service that they require. We're going to allow them to call us at all hours of the day. We're going to incorporate that in the price. And if you're allowed to charge for that, you're going to feel more empowered also to then deliver that service and deliver on what you've promised. Absolutely. And spend that time with the clients where they think, yeah, I get a really brilliant, excellent service from my lawyer. And why can I get that? A, because you're paying for it, and B, because I've freed up the time to be able to deliver that. But if you're one of 1,000 or one of 100 clients or something that I'm doing conveyancing for, say, I'm not going to be able to devote that time to you. But if I can double my prices and half the caseload, I'm still making the same amount of money, but I'm providing a much better service to the clients. And ultimately, that's really, really important for our people, for our profitability, for our bottom line. And if we can start increasing our prices as well, so much the better. You know, everybody assumes that everybody always wants the cheapest price. That's not the case. When we go out for dinner at the weekend, we're not all buying the cheapest bottle of wine. We're not all driving around in the cheapest cars, and we're not all shopping in Primark. People have got different buying habits, and it's important that we recognize that.
100%. And I just think your final point there on linking it to what you said earlier, those 3 points. Value-based pricing affects your bottom line, it affects your employees, and it affects your clients. And those are the top 3 things that I'm sure are your goals and aims. So thank you so much, Shaun. I think that wraps that up perfectly nicely, and I really appreciate your time. And I wish you all the best with the book. Is it due out next week? Is it?
It is. Yeah, it is. I've had a chat with the publisher this morning, and it's all printed. It's going to be boxed up and sent to the distributors for Friday and being mailed out next week to those people who have bought it. Available at all good bookstops and probably some awful bookshops as well. But anyway, it's out there.
Lovely stuff. When this conversation comes out, it will be available. So yeah, you can go and buy Shaun's book, Ditch the Billable Hour. And thank you so much, Shaun, for joining me today and sharing your expertise and advice.
Oh, thank you, Amy. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.